Post-Trauma is a puzzle-heavy survival horror game that feels like a deliberate love letter to the genre's roots, especially the Silent Hill side of things. It avoids constant action and instead focuses on atmosphere, puzzles, camera work, unease, and is deeply respectful of the classic design philosophy and its elders, Resident Evil and Silent Hill. Rather than throwing exposition straight at you, Post-Trauma introduces its story slowly, letting you piece things together through exploration and mood. Speaking of the story, Post-Trauma follows Roman, a middle-aged train conductor who awakens alone in a surreal, decaying world after a traumatic event. As he explores strange, shifting environments filled with unsettling imagery, cryptic characters, and symbolic threats, Roman is forced to confront themes of trauma, guilt, memory, and fear. The story unfolds gradually through environmental storytelling, dialogue, and lore, embracing ambiguity and psychological horror rather than clear explanations. If you're a fan of the genre, this should sound pretty familiar. Themes of trauma, fear, and identity are woven directly into the environments, characters, and lore rather than spelled out for you. It's deliberately vague, but not careless. The game definitely embraces the classic survival horror formula, and it's clear that the devs understand why the structure still works today. Exploration, puzzle solving, and limited combat are carefully balanced to maintain the tension. The fear factor is consistently effective, especially with the use of the camera in this game. Post-Trauma utilizes the fixed camera angles as it should, and are some of the best in the genre. Yes, some of the best in the genre. I mean, just look at this shot here. Just an absolute work of art. The puzzles in this game are also amongst the best in the genre. Clever, logical, and very satisfying to solve. They definitely demand close observation and critical thinking. I highly recommend keeping your phone camera and a notepad handy because in this game, there's no carryable map. But we're not completely screwed here. There are map placements on the walls around your environment. And to immerse things even further, there's no way to access all your files in one place. And while most of our favorite games in this genre do have those features, this is just not the case here. But it's not all bad. Believe it or not, the camera is actually what helped me navigate the most. I don't feel that the lack of those features actually hinders the gameplay. And speaking of the gameplay, combat in Post-Trauma is present, but intentionally restrained. The weapons in this game definitely serve their purpose without turning it into an action experience, ensuring that encounters feel tense rather than empowering, a true staple to the genre. And while we're on the topic of combat, the enemy designs are another highlight in this game. Every enemy, including every boss, is unsettling, symbolic, and used sparingly enough that every encounter maintains true tension. And because combat is intentionally limited, the way Post-Trauma handles inventory management becomes just as important as the encounters themselves. The inventory system, while not deeply restrictive like Resident Evil, functions well enough to support the survival aspect and complements the overall pacing of the game. All of these limitations ultimately serve one purpose. They heighten the way this game presents its world. Visually, Post-Trauma is absolutely stunning for the most part. I'll get back to that most part in a little bit. The environments are moody, surreal, and very memorable, supported by strong lighting and shadow work that constantly plays with visibility and perception. And this pairs wonderfully with the game's strong sound design. Environmental noises, distant echoes, and subtle audio cues constantly keep the player on edge. As well as strong sound design, the soundtrack of Post-Trauma is excellent and immediately memorable. It strongly evokes the style of the man, the myth, the legend, Akira Yamaoka. And here's one of those beautiful melancholic tracks right now. Just truly another amazing part that this game has to offer. The soundtrack does an excellent job of reinforcing the game's atmosphere, but it sadly isn't enough to smooth over every rough edge. Remember when I said that the visuals are striking most of the time? There are definitely some visual hiccups in the game, particularly during some cutscenes. I noticed these visual hiccups especially on Roman's mustache, like it's magnetically attracted to things. Also here in this cutscene, I mean this dude's clothes are about to make an exit to another realm, and while it doesn't ruin the overall experience, it is just a bit distracting. Another noticeable drawback in the game is some of the voice acting. While uneven voice acting is more forgiving in this genre, Roman's delivery stands out a bit more than it should, especially when the rest of the cast generally fits much better.
I wasn't thinking that. I didn't mean to.
But to me, the most disappointing aspect of the game is actually the final boss fight, and without spoilers, it just doesn't hit the way I would have liked. But back to the positives. I didn't have very many, if any, real issues with this game at all. Post-Trauma is a confident, atmospheric survival horror game that truly understands what makes the classic formula so effective. Its strengths far outweigh its shortcomings, and it has actually become one of my favorites in the modern era of this genre. It's a game built on mood, mystery, and restraint, and it succeeds because of that. And while it does have a few rough edges, it does deliver a thoughtful experience that fans of this classic formula will appreciate. I enjoyed the hell out of this game, and I hope that you guys can too. Thank you for watching my review of Post-Trauma.
Again?